Hi friends, I'm Abby and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be chatting through all of the books that I read in the month of November. So November was a month of big books. It was a month where I didn't feel like I was reading very much, but they were all very, very big. So in total I finished 5 books, coming to 3,266 pages, and I have started a 6th book. I am filming this on the 27th of November, so I do have 4 days left where I do hope that I will be able to finish that 6th book. But as of right now, I have finished 5, and of these 5, 3 of them are fantasy, 1 is non-fiction, and 1 is a romance. All 5 of them were adult books. And out of these, I have 1 5-star, 2 4 stars, 1 3.5 star, and 1 2 stars. And then in terms of the series, 3 of them were standalones, 1 of them was the conclusion to a series, and 1 of them was a continuation of a series, which means my total of on-the-go series is 25, and the book that I am currently reading is also the conclusion to another series. So progress on the series. I was taking part in the Read Your Damn Series-a-thon, which was like an impromptu sort of low-key readathon, which was a focus on continuing and finishing series. So I do keep trying and endeavouring to finish series. I have quite a few where I just have a final book left, so I really hope that I can get that number even lower in the last month of the year. Going into exactly what I read, the first book that I finished in the month of November was my audiobook of Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. This is a non-fiction book which I found really, really interesting on sleep, just sleep in general. It's not something that I really have ever thought about before. Like, obviously I enjoy sleep. I'm very regular, I think, with my sleep schedule. Like, I'm pretty much 11 midnight until 7, 8 a.m. every day. Weekends, weekdays, whatever. That's my routine. That's it. Like, I feel like I sleep quite well, but it was really, really interesting, like understanding the science behind it and looking at the studies that have been done and how we are continuing to learn the importance of sleep, and we're continuing to look at the relationship that sleep has on our general well-being and health, and looking at things such as like cancer and diseases and Alzheimer's and depression, and looking at all of those health conditions and seeing how the impact of sleep on them, and seeing whether it's a reciprocal relationship, because there isn't quite, I don't think the science just there yet, whether it's sleep that impacts them or them that impacts sleep, because of how linked they are in the brain. So I just found that really, really interesting to look at the science behind that, and also to look at like memory and the impact that sleep has on our memory, and how our memory is significantly improved if we're getting more than 8 hours sleep, and then significantly reduced if we're getting less than 8 hours sleep, or less than 6 hours sleep. So I found that really, really interesting, and like the impact of long-term depravity of sleep, and how a lot of us are sleep deprived and we don't even realize it. If you're getting less than 6 hours sleep every night, then you're sleep deprived, and you may think you're okay, but you're not. Him saying that as humans we don't necessarily realize like how sleep deprived we are, and how that is impacting our health and the longevity of our health. I found it a really interesting book. I think it was definitely made me like think a lot more about sleep and like the importance of it. Really coincidentally, whilst I was reading this book, I found out that a friend of mine was really struggling with sleep and had not slept for over a week. And so I thought it was just really coincidental that I was reading this book on the importance of sleep, whilst also seeing the struggles of a friend who hasn't been able to sleep, and his struggles and the deterioration of his mental health as he kept going for a longer and longer period of time without sleep. And I don't know, it did just get me thinking, and there were some bits in it that I didn't even realise. Like, he was saying the importance of having 8 hours sleep before you have a vaccine, and that the chances of a vaccine working and the chances of a vaccine really helping and preventing you from getting that disease are significantly improved by if you've had 8 hours sleep in the days leading up to that vaccine, and then to continue having that 8 hours sleep after having the vaccine. And I was like, I should have known this before I got my COVID jab. Like, I should have made sure that I was very well rested to make sure that my COVID jab works because there's no point getting the jab if your body is not in the healthy position enough to enable the antibodies to do their job right. There was lots of interesting stuff in there. So if you're at all interested in sleep, then I would recommend it. And I guess the flip side of that is that he is a sleep scientist. Like, that is his job. His job is to persuade us to sleep. That is the purpose of the book. He had all the evidence. He did have the studies, but I guess you're not looking at, he wasn't presenting any studies that contradicted his message. I read The Behemoth, Words of Radiance, the second book in the Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson. I loved this. I have a whole reading vlog which I can link, which is spoilers, reactions, theories as I went through reading this book. It's quite an extensive video, but if you are at all interested in my Cosmere thoughts, then I do have that and I can link it, and there is one for Way of Kings as well from when I read that earlier in this year. So I really like this. I've been struggling to think about which one I preferred were between Way of Kings and Words of Radiance, because I think for the bulk of this book I was loving it, but I had these expectations for the ending because everyone talks about this Sandilange at the end, but I had this Sandilange probably more in the middle because I predicted a lot of the ending and my predictions were correct. And so by the time I got to the ending, I'd already had that moment. And so I was like, oh well, yeah, because I'd had that like wow moment when I predicted it at the 50% mark. So that was, I don't know, it sort of was a bit of a weird experience for me because of that prediction. And that I was a bit surprised that I had predicted it, because I don't normally predict like Brandon Sanderson endings in his books. But overall, I think it's really well paced. I was just enthralled by the characters and seeing their journey and seeing what was happening with them. And I'm very intrigued to see what happens next. I love spotting the Easter eggs within the Cosmere. I just find that so fun, and spotting the links between his books. I definitely want to do some more rereading of the Cosmere because it's been quite a few years now since I've read Warbreaker and Elantris, so I do want to reread those. I think prior to, I don't know, at some point next year. And I also need to go back to Era 2 of Mistborn. I do need to go back to it and reattempt it, because I have been advised that it is best for me to read Mistborn Secret History before I read Rhythm of War. And to read Mistborn Secret History, I've been advised that I should read the rest of Era 2, but I got stuck on Shadows of Self and haven't finished it. And this is really heavy, but I'm really excited to read a lot more Brandon Sanderson next year. I think that's going to be one of my things for next year, that I do want to read a lot of Brandon Sanderson, because I want to read Era 2, I want to do some rereads, I want to continue in this series and read, well, the novellas and then Oathbringer and Words of Radiance. So I just feel like there's a lot of Brandon Sanderson in 2022. But I thoroughly enjoy this and would definitely recommend it, but I feel as though it's recommended across the board on BookTube, but I would still definitely recommend it if you're interested in a epic fantasy series. And then another audiobook that I finished was the Happily Ever After playlist. I've counted it as a standalone, but it is like a companion in a series with some other romances, but I don't really count romance series within my series, so for me it stands alone. And I quite like this. It was fine. Like it's not like an all-time favourite romance, but I did find it quite cute. I quite liked how it dealt with the topic of grief, because the main character going into the story, she lost her fiance 2 years prior to the start of the book, and so it looks at her grief and how she is dealing with that and how she is coming to terms with it. So I really liked how that was included in the book, but there were some lighter moments. I really liked the relationship between the two main characters. It was really cute. I don't know if it's like my favourite setting, like having this sort of rock star celebrity. It's not my favourite type of setting or scenario, but I did find their meet cute. It was really cute, and there was a lovely dog, and so it was just cute. There were some moments where I was really smiling and grinning whilst reading it. I was like, this is so cute, but it's not like an all-time favourite. But I would definitely recommend it if you're after a cute romance. Then I had a bit of a disappointment, and I've been struggling a little bit with how I phrase this. And as well, I read this over a week ago now, and I've still been reflecting on it and trying to figure out like how I rate it and how I talk about it. And that is The Fall of Babel by Josiah Bancroft. And I have settled, I think, on 2 stars for this. I'm going to go between 2 and 3. And this is the 4th and final book in the Books of Babel by Josiah Bancroft. I mean, I've always been a little bit lukewarm on this series. Like, I've never loved it. Like, I haven't given any of the books 5 stars, but it's been like a 3 to 4 star series. I think my favourite book was Armour the Sphinx, which I gave 4 stars, and then Senlin Ascends and The Hod King were like 3.5 stars. So that was where my expectations were, and that's what I was really expecting this to be. I was really hoping that it was going to be like the best in the series and that it would beat out Arm of the Sphinx for the 4-star. But unfortunately, I really struggled with this. And I don't know if it did anything especially different to those other books in the series, but I really struggled with it. And a lot of it was the structure and the writing style. So this has a similar structure to The Hod King, in which you end up with large chunks of one character. The first book is very much focused on Senlin and his journey in trying to find his wife, Maria. And then as the series goes on, it becomes more than that. It becomes more about the Tower of Babel and this collection of ragtag people and their journey, but predominantly on the tower. And I was fine with that being like the change of, not plot, but like the change of focus. And that I was fine with. But I think the way that this has been structured, and the same with The Hod King, is that there would be large chunks of time that would be spent with one character, and then a large chunk with another one, and then another one. Going into this, there was 160 pages right at the beginning of a character that we hadn't seen since Arm of the Sphinx. And so I think my issue is that I think this should have been put within The Hod King, or that this should have been interspersed within that. And so going in, it just felt a little bit disjointed, having that weird structure. And then I was reading those 160 pages waiting to get to the other characters. And I was like, well, I've had enough of you now. I need, change it up, please. I think I had issues with the writing. And I think it's very poetic writing. And I can see it's a very similar style to the other books in the series. But I struggled with it. It felt to me, and I don't know if this comparison will work for everyone, but it felt to me like I was reading a book in a foreign language that I knew but I didn't know well. I mean, if you have learned another language and you're at the point where you understand it and you can speak it, you can read it, but you don't know every word, that's what I felt like whilst reading this book. That I was like, okay, I get the gist of this page, but there's so much of this page that hasn't gone in, that I haven't understood and registered. And I would reread sentences and I'd be like, I still don't quite get what that sentence is trying to say. Like, what are these words doing together? And the thing is, English is my native language. Like, I would understand if this was a book in Spanish, because that might be more of my expectation for that. But it's my native language, and I was like, what are these words doing together? I don't understand why you put that word with that word, and how does this make a sentence? And then there was one sentence, and I reread it like 3 times, and I was like, okay, I don't know if I quite understood that, but it's a pivotal sentence, I can tell that. And then I was like, okay, I think this is what's happened. And then we'll go on a few more pages, and I was like, well, obviously I misread that sentence that I reread 3 times to try and understand, because what I thought happened has not happened. I really struggled with it. And so as I was rereading these sentences and trying to make sure that I understood the book, it felt like such a slog. And I just didn't have the motivation to pick it up, because I was like, I just feel like it was going on forever. I mean, it is a long book. It is like over 600 pages, so it is long, but it felt very long. It felt a lot longer than it was. It felt like it just kept going. And I don't know, I feel like it could have been edited more, that the execution of how we got to the ending, like I was fine with where we got to. I was fine with the ending, but I just feel like I wasn't too happy with how we got there. That it felt a little bit clunky and messy in the attempt to get there. And I guess as well that a lot of our characters are separated, and maybe I wanted them to be more together. I don't know quite what I wanted, but it wasn't what I got. So I hope I've tried to explain that quite right. I really tried to mull over what didn't work for me and what was wrong with what I found, what I really struggled with. And those are the things that I've come to, that I just felt like I was disconnected from the story because of the writing. I think that must be it, that I didn't have a connection anymore to it because felt like I was at such a distance from the writing. Now a bit more positive, I read American Gods by Neil Gaiman. I've read a few Neil Gaiman books before, but it's been a few years now, so this is the first one I've read in the past 4 years or something, and it's been the longest book I read by him. And I didn't really have much expectations going in. I mean, I'd heard of American Gods, I knew it was about gods in America, but I feel as though it was different to what I was expecting. Even though I didn't have that many expectations going in, I don't know, it was just different. As of filming this, I have a discussion later on this afternoon with Philip Chase on this book, and I feel like that is really going to like help me, well, not help me, but I liked this. I've given it 4 stars, and I like the writing style, I like the characters. I really liked that there are little stories interspersed throughout the text, but I think it's quite a thematic book, and I don't generally read for themes. I can appreciate themes, and I think themes are great for discussion, which is why I think this discussion that I'm going to have with Philip later on today, which will be up as a I will link it, because as of posting this, it will already have happened. I think that's going to really like enhance my experience of the text, because I think that will like highlight some of the themes and highlight some of the extra workings that went on that are more than just the story. I liked the writing style, I liked the characters, I really liked the direction of the book. I think the ending was really well done. I really liked the ending of this. I really liked the stories that were interspersed. I did have a sort of disconnect from our main character. I just never quite grew attached to him. Maybe because we're very different people. I think I don't have that many similarities to him, and it's not as though I have to relate to my characters, but I did feel really far apart from him as a person. So it was a little bit hard to spend so much time in his head, because I was like, I just don't quite get you. I think that was my only critique, that I just don't know if I wanted him to be the main character. But I do think it deals with some very interesting topics. I really liked the themes of like, well, there was grief again in this one, so the themes of like grief, the themes of like immigration, and the themes of these gods and their place in America, and like whether you are a new god or an old god, and your role in society and your place in society, and people remembering you and your sort of place in history. So I think there was a lot of interesting themes in this, which I'm really, well, as I said, I'm looking forward to discussing these with Philip. So I thought I would like this. I don't know, it feels like a weird book to recommend. Like, I don't really know who this is for, because it was just it was bizarre. It was a really bizarre book. Like, I think it was well written. I think it was well paced. I feel like it's very bizarre. So I do wonder exactly, I mean, I know it's very widely read, like a lot of people have read this, it's very highly rated, but I don't know if it's for everyone. But yes, I enjoyed it. It was, I think, a little bit outside my normal books that I read, and I think it's different to the other Neil Gaiman books I've read, because I've read Coraline, The Ocean at the End of the Lane, and Stardust, and it does feel very different to those books. So but I did read those many years ago, so yeah, it's an interesting one. And then the final book that I am currently reading is Bitter Blue by Kristen Cashel. This is the 3rd book in the Gracing series. I'm counting this as the final book. I know that there has recently been another book come out, but I'm going to finish after this one. So I am 100 pages in of this 500 odd page book. I do have 4 days, so hopefully I can read those last 400 or so pages before the end of the month. So far, I'm really, really enjoying this. I'm really liking these characters, the setting. I'm very intrigued to see what's going to happen. I'm finding it very digestible and easy to read, so I really hope to have this finished before the end of the month. And I've really enjoyed the series as a whole. It's quite a fun YA series. I think after my month of quite adult, more heavy books, I think this will be a nice little break and a nice sort of YA time in between some of the more epic fantasy books that I have been reading. Though that is my month of reading and what I have read in the month of November. I was looking at it, I was like, I've not really read very much. It's like not very, but in terms of page count, I've been reading some very big books like American Gods, Fall of Babel, Words of Radiance. They were all very large books, very, very large books. And I guess Bitter Blue as well, like everything has been long, aside from the romance. But so although I've not read a large number of books, I've still read quite a large number of pages. I did not get to my whole TBR. Maybe I was being a bit unrealistic. I guess I did read Words of Radiance, which was my like maybe book, which meant that I didn't read Mask of Mirrors, Little Thieves, and I haven't finished Bitter Blue. I do definitely hope to push those books into December, and I do still really hope to read those. They just unfortunately did not happen this month. Let me know what your favourite book of November was. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment and subscribe, and I will see you in my future videos. Bye!